Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
The letter came on a Wednesday, first week of September, 38 years old and living out of my truck with more feed bags than furniture. Certified envelope, stamped out of Santa Fe, from a law firm I'd never heard of. I thought it was a mistake until I saw the name. Heather Davis. My grandmother. I hadn't seen her since I was maybe 10. Back before my old man packed his bag and walked out the front door like he was just stepping out for milk. She was his mother. After he left, the connection snapped. My mom didn't have a kind word for anyone named Davis after that. All I really remembered about Heather was peppermint tea that made your eyes water, and the way she'd press her hand on your shoulder, firm like she was sealing a promise, and say, "Keep going." I opened the letter right there in the post office parking lot. Short and clean, I was the sole heir to the last piece of her land. House, barn, and a narrow strip of pasture that somehow never got seized, taxed out, or paved over. Quick note: before listening, share in the comments which city or country you're watching from. Thanks, and let's continue. So I loaded the cot, a few tools, a case of canned chili, and Dusty into the bed of my 2004 pickup and headed south. Dusty's a German Shepherd mix I raised from a pup. Found him abandoned on the side of the interstate, eyes shut and ribs showing. He fit in my jacket pocket then. Now he could knock a man down without breaking stride. I trained Army K-9 units for 5 years, and Dusty was the kind of dog who listened to the wind like it had orders to give. We rolled up to the place right as the sun hit the fence posts sideways. The screen door slapped open like it owed someone money. Paint peeled in wide strips. The air smelled like dry wood, sage, and memory. Dusty leapt down and circled the yard, nose low, ears up. He posted up near the barn and stared, head cocked, not moving. I walked through the house slow. Heather's scent was gone, but the bones of the place were hers. Tin of buttons on the shelf, a chipped Bible on the table, and on the hallway stand, a cream envelope, my name on it, in the same tight handwriting I remembered from her jam jars, Sean. I didn't sit down to open it, just slid my thumb under the flap and pulled the note free. 3 words: find what they took. No signature, no explanation, just that. I read it twice. Couldn't tell if I was angry or rattled. Grief didn't land the way I thought it would. It felt more like I'd been handed a match and told to find the fuse. I walked the perimeter, checked the well and the padlocks. The barn looked solid, just old. The wind picked up as the sun dropped, and Dusty kept his post, one paw forward, ears swiveling, eyes pinned to something I couldn't see. Inside, I crashed on the couch with a folded jacket under my head. Dusty paced, over and over to the back door, nose to the seam, tail low. "Settle," I told him. He didn't. Next morning I hit town early, grabbed coffee, eggs, and a couple old topo maps from a thrift box by the diner. There was a piece in the local paper on water rights, and some rancher named Damon Bailey, who was apparently buying up everything but the sky. Writer was someone named Iris Walker. I folded the article and stuffed it in my jacket. That afternoon, I called the county shelter and offered the barn for overflow kennels. They said it was kind of me. I didn't feel kind. I felt like someone was watching me breathe. That night, Dusty lay with his nose flat to the door, ears tight and trembling. He let out a low whine, quiet like a warning. He'd never done that before. By morning, the cold had thinned, and the barn smelled like old hay and iron. At first light, I came back with Dusty. He nosed aside a warped rubber mat near the feed bins, and a recessed lid showed itself. I sat on the edge of the barn threshold, Dusty leaning into my side like he was trying to hold me still. Below us, the open hatch yawned, ladder slick with years of grime and no handrails. She was down there, barely lit by the morning sun spilling through the barn slats. I could see her now, tucked against the wall, one hand braced like it hurt to move. "I'm coming down," I called. "Don't try anything stupid." She didn't flinch, just gave a weak nod like it was all the strength she had left. I climbed down, hit the bottom, and that smell hit me. Damp rock, sweat, something metallic under it all. "Dusty brought me," she said, voice rough. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Her lips were cracked, and her skin was streaked with dirt and old blood. She had the look of someone who'd run too far and stopped too late. I didn't ask questions, just lifted her up, light as a fence post rail, and carried her into the house. She was too out of it to protest, head against my shoulder like she was trying to stay conscious. Dusty followed tight behind us, ears up, tail twitching low. Inside, I kicked the door shut and set her in the kitchen chair. She blinked slow at the cabinets like they were speaking a language she hadn't heard in a while. I warmed a can of chili, poured her a glass of water, then set both in front of her with a spoon and a clean rag. "You got a name?" I asked. She managed a nod. "Iris. Iris Walker." The name snapped into place. "You write for the Echo. Water rights piece last week?" She swallowed slow and gave a weak smile. "That's me." I reached into the drawer near the pantry, pulled out one of Heather's old flannels and a pair of jeans, held them up. "Not sure if these'll fit, but they're clean." "They'll do." She took them with shaking hands. "Thank you." She cleaned up fast. Faster than I expected for someone who looked half dead an hour ago. When she came back into the kitchen, the clothes clung to her like they'd been made for her 10 years ago. She sat straighter now, still rough, but steady. "My aunt's from Red Cliffs," she said, stirring the chili slowly. "Taught me where all the old springs run. My mom was Dene, raised me between the mesa and the canyon roots. I freelance for the paper now. Been tracking what Bailey's doing." "Damon Bailey?" I asked, though I already knew. She nodded. "He's buying up land fast. Whole sections. Dead water rights. Backroom deals. And a month ago, I heard one of his guys slip about a lithium-bearing vein under stolen tracks. Said they were going to scrub the paper trail clean." I leaned back against the counter. "And they saw you?" "Near the old windmill, 2 ridges south of Route 49. I had my camera out. They must have been watching. One of them called out my name before I even turned around. I dropped the lens bag and ran toward the wash." Her voice stayed calm, not flat, focused, like she'd already done the panic and boxed it away for later. "Dusty found me before they did," she said. "Out of nowhere, he just came charging in, snarling and snapping. Bit one of them, I think. He baited them toward the wrong trail while I ducked through a narrow slit in the rocks. Led to a hidden pocket, deep and hollow. We stayed there 2 nights. I looked down at Dusty. He stretched out on the tile, tail thumping once, tongue lolled. "That dog saved my life," she said. "Kept me warm, stayed close. On the 3rd day, he started pawing at this spot behind the boulders, found a tunnel. We followed it slow, 1 step at a time, and it brought us up under your barn. That ladder? That's where we came out. You're telling me my dog sniffed his way through a sealed tunnel and brought you to the one place you'd be safe?" She nodded again. Didn't hesitate once. I didn't answer. Just crouched and scratched Dusty's neck until he let out a soft grunt. He leaned his full weight into my leg like he was proud of himself. Iris powered down her phone and laid it flat on the table. Her fingers hovered over it like the thing might explode. There's a tracker app that updates every 12 hours. I think it pinged just before Dusty pulled us out of the rocks. I grabbed an old feed tin off the porch, lifted the lid, and dropped the phone in. Slid the whole thing under the cabinet baseboard. "If they've got the ping, they know you're here," I said. She didn't blink. "I figured." I walked to the sideboard and grabbed the envelope Heather had left me, set it in front of Iris, and watched her eyes scan the handwriting. "She knew," she whispered. Her finger touched the edge of the paper like it burned. She knew the whole time. My stomach knotted like I'd missed a step on a ladder. She was waiting for someone to come back, Iris said. She didn't trust the law, didn't trust the courts, but she trusted you. I didn't know what to say to that. Dusty whined once at the door. Low, sharp, a warning. Iris looked toward the sound, then back at me. They won't stop. No, I said. They won't. I went to the closet and pulled out a pack I hadn't touched since deployment. Old straps, still tight, gear dry and ready. I started checking my headlamp and batteries. Iris stood. We have to go back down there, whatever they're after. It's not just rumors. It's real. Your dog knew where to go. That means there's more. I strapped the pack to my shoulders. Then we follow him. Dusty let out one soft bark. His ears were up again, like radar, like he'd been waiting for us to get moving. We didn't say a word. Not when Dusty went still as rebar. Not when the low rumble of a truck engine echoed faint through the cracks above us. I raised a hand and touched Iris's wrist, just enough to hold her still. Her breath caught in her throat. Then it faded. The engine, the voices. Dusty didn't move for another full minute. Only when he slowly exhaled and lowered his head did I shift. We backed away from the ladder, careful with each step, then turned toward the tunnel. We'd packed before heading down. 2 headlamps, spare batteries, a length of climbing rope, my old Army notepad, and a box of gallon zip bags. I'd left a note on the fridge upstairs, just in case someone found the place before this turned into bones. We went single file, me first, Dusty right behind, Iris closing us in. The light from my headlamp lit up the dust like snowflakes, floating slow, untouched by wind. The tunnel walls weren't rough stone. They were shaped, like someone had cut them by hand generations back. It didn't feel like a mine. It felt older than that, more careful. The air changed as we moved. It got cooler, damp, with a weight behind it like the earth was thinking about something. 2 tight bends later, the passage widened. I could stand up straight. The ceiling curved above us like a belly. Water dripped in the distance, slow and steady, like time counting itself. Dusty veered left, nose to the wall, ears twitching. He doubled back, paced, then stopped at a stacked wall of stones. Looked like a dead end, unless you were paying real close attention. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing. Iris stepped beside me and ran her palm over the seams. Then she stopped. There, she whispered. Feel that? It's breathing. She was right. The faintest draft, just enough to raise the hairs on your arms. We got to work. Stone by stone, shoulder to shoulder. The stack wasn't mortared, just old, dry. We took turns, always bracing the sides to keep it from caving. Took nearly 40 minutes, maybe more. Then it popped, a hollow behind the last layer, and cool air washed over us like creek water. I slipped through first, then helped Iris in. Dusty went last, crawling through like he'd done it before. The space beyond was wide, wider than I expected. My headlamp caught a tarp in the far corner and a crate nearby, everything coated in dust thick enough to write your name in. I crossed the room, crouched, and lifted the tarp. A chest. Steel corners, wood slats dry but intact. Padlock hanging loose with the pin halfway out, like it had been opened once and never bothered with again. I didn't hesitate. I opened the lid. Inside, bundles wrapped in oiled cloth, each tied tight with twine. I pulled the first one free and unrolled it slow. I muttered under my breath. Deeds, affidavits, mineral surveys, drawn by hand in pencil so fine it looked printed. Iris knelt beside me, reached in, and lifted a folded map. She spread it on the tarp. Bearings, elevation notes, crosshatches in blue pencil, every mark labeled in neat block caps. Donald Davis. Another bundle held photos, black and whites, edges curling. My grandfather, younger than I'd ever seen in any frame, standing beside families, women in long skirts, men in broad hats, kids barefoot in plain shirts, smiling with their whole faces. On the back of one, rest stop, North Tunnel. Iris flipped through while I read. Each document was sharp, specific. One described a pegmatite body, spodumene rich, lithium-bearing rock. Another detailed groundwater flow from a mesa spring, noting seasonal volume, freeze dates, depth. He hadn't guessed. He knew. And he'd filed claims. Some of them initialed, others stamped with dates going back 40-plus years, but none of it had ever hit the record books. Not the ones in the courthouse. "Here," Iris said. She held up a packet bound with string. I untied it and read the first line. "Heather, they've started asking questions. Men in town, not from here. Don't tell anyone about the map. Keep it in the old way. Letter after letter, careful and coded, written in my grandfather's hand." He knew they were coming. He knew the land was worth more than crops, and he trusted Heather to hide the truth. The last page was dated the winter of his disappearance. After that, nothing. "That's what she meant," I said, voice low. "Find what they took." Heather had been waiting for someone to come back, someone who'd understand what to do when the time came. She could have left it to the lawyers. She didn't. I grabbed the Sharpie from my jacket and marked every zip bag. Deeds, affidavits, maps, letters. Iris took pictures with her camera. Flash off. We worked fast, quiet. Everything went into the pack, tight and layered. Dusty lay by the wall, head on his paws, eyes watching the entrance. I zipped the pack and stood up. "Let's move. We'll sort the rest topside." Dusty held his ground. His body went stiff, ears forward. He made a low sound. Not a growl, not a whine. A warning. We followed his gaze back toward the gap we'd entered. I clicked my light off. Iris followed. Silence filled the space. Then it came. Faint, through the cracks overhead near the barn ladder. Gravel crunching, an engine ticking in place. Voices. Close. Dusty stayed silent. He just inched forward, muscles tight, nose twitching toward the sound. We backed up, every movement careful. I slid my pack over one shoulder, kept my other hand free. They were above us. I could hear boots on wood. Someone dragged something heavy near the barn door. Maybe a crate, maybe equipment. I recognized one of the voices. Gravel in a blender. Damon Bailey. He was here. I motioned to Iris. We edged back toward the wide chamber. The tunnel behind us split. One path we came from, the other darker, unlit, leading left. Dusty turned without waiting and padded into the dark. I didn't argue. We followed. We followed Dusty into the left-hand split without thinking. The ground dipped, then narrowed, and the air thinned enough to make every breath feel counted. Behind us, the voices above grew clearer, bouncing down through cracks in the stone. It wasn't one truck. I heard doors shut in sequence, and engines ticking hot. I counted 3 sets of footsteps by sound alone. Then Dusty stopped short, ears pinned back, and I eased up just enough to see through a seam in the rock above the ladder. 3 trucks sat in the yard. 1 black, 1 red, and 1 white County Silverado with a cracked passenger taillight and a dented rear bumper. I'd seen that rig more than once idling behind the courthouse loading dock when I dropped off a stray intake for the shelter. Judge Orrin Vale's driver, unless the county kept 2 with the same scars, by coincidence. A man called up from the barn, voice rough and easy, like gravel rolling in a tin can. I knew the name before he said it. "Sean Davis," he called. "You're on unstable ground there. Son, best hand over any materials before someone gets hurt." Damon Bailey. 6 months in this county and he'd bought more land than most families held in 3 generations. Another voice cut in. Calmer, lower. "Sean, it's Doug Perry. You remember me?" I didn't. Not until he added, "I rode with your old man. Long time ago. That one landed. Not hard, just enough to throw my balance." I scanned the yard again. 2 of the men wore shoulder holsters, jackets pulled back on purpose. The racks in the trucks held cased rifles. They weren't here to ask questions. Dusty edged toward the ladder opening, hackles lifting. He shifted his weight like he was daring a boot to show itself. I hooked a finger under his collar and shook my head once. He held, barely. They're calling it county business, Iris whispered, lips close to my ear. She didn't look scared. She looked focused. She mouthed one word, federal. I nodded. With Vale in the mix, we had no shot at fairness here. I slid the hatch just enough to meet their eyes. Daylight cut across my face. Bailey stood near the barn door, hands loose, smile set like it was bolted on. Doug Perry leaned against the white Silverado, arms crossed, watching everything. You don't have a warrant, I said, and I've got counsel inbound. It was a lie, and Bailey heard it. His smile widened without touching his eyes. We'll wait, he said. Take your time. He wasn't waiting. He wanted us to bolt and make a mistake. I shut the hatch and backed away. Iris was already moving, quiet and fast, toward the tunnel behind us. We took the first left off the main path. Bad call. The floor dipped, then gave. Not a full collapse, but enough to choke the air. Dust billowed, thick and dry. The headlamp beam died in it, swallowed whole. My chest tightened and my throat burned like I'd swallowed chalk. Dead air. Panic climbed me, cold and fast, like a hand closing around my ribs. I forced myself to slow, counted my breaths, felt for Iris's sleeve. She was there. Dusty sneezed once, sharp, then pivoted hard and shoved his nose into a narrow slit I hadn't clocked. Air slid through it, cool and clean. Here, Iris said. She stayed calm, which helped more than words. I shrugged the pack off and shoved it through first, then dropped to my stomach and squeezed. The slit narrowed halfway in. My right shoulder caught between two stone ribs and stopped me dead. Pain flared hot, like a nail driven deep. I'm stuck, I said, and hated how tight my voice sounded. You're stuck, Iris echoed, steady. She backed up, planted her boots, hooked her fingers into my belt. Breathe out slow. We're doing this on 3. I let the air go, went limp when she pulled, and slid free like a cork. I rolled onto my side, gasping but moving. Dusty squeezed through last, tail a blur once he cleared. We didn't stop. The passage sloped down and spit us out into a low wash behind a juniper. The sun hit my eyes hard after the dark. I crawled the last few feet and flattened myself against the dirt. Through the branches, I watched one of the trucks roll slow around the back of the house and stop near the corrals. A door opened. Someone laughed, short and mean. They're sweeping, Iris said. They think we're still underground. Not for long, I said. I shouldered the pack and checked the straps. Everything was still there. That mattered. We moved bent low, cutting for the basalt shelf above the windmill. The ground was a mess of rock and scrub, hard to track if you knew how to walk it. Dusty ranged ahead, nose up, testing the wind like an old hand. When he paused, we paused. When he angled right, we followed. We crossed a shallow draw and climbed. My lungs burned, but the pain in my shoulder kept me honest. Halfway up, I looked back once. The house sat quiet in the dip, trucks scattered like ticks around it. Men moved with purpose, opening doors, kicking at boards, calling to each other. Bailey stood near the barn, hands on his hips, head tilted like he was listening for something stubborn. That was the last time I looked at the place and felt like it still belonged to me. At the shelf, Iris touched my arm and pointed. A faint trail cut toward the windmill, then disappeared into rock. She smiled once, quick and fierce. This way, she said. They won't follow. Dusty took off ahead, confident, tail level. I followed, leaving the house, the barn, and whatever version of my life I'd thought I was inheriting behind me. The trail got mean after the ridge. Loose rock and old roots made footing miserable, but Iris never slowed. She moved like she was born between switchbacks and dry washes, always 2 steps ahead, one finger brushing the air like she could read direction off the wind. Dusty stuck close, cutting ahead to scan, then looping back. Every few minutes he paused and looked behind us, watching, listening. I didn't ask what he heard. I could guess. We hit the first seep spring before noon, a shallow trickle under cottonwood roots, just enough to fill our canteens. Iris crouched low, cupping water into her palms. She didn't speak until we'd cleared the mud from our boots and moved on. "We can make 3 more like this," she said, pointing with her chin. "Each one's 20 to 30 minutes apart if we don't hit washout." I nodded. "You've done this before." "Not exactly like this," she said, "but close." We moved from tree line to tree line, low and quick, leaving nothing behind. Dusty marked each stop with a nose to the wind and a low wag of his tail. That was the signal. Safe, for now. By late afternoon I heard them. Thin howls carried by heat and dust. Hounds. At least 2, maybe more. Sounded far off, but that didn't mean much out here. I glanced at Iris. She heard it too. Dusty froze for half a breath, then nosedived into a muddy side channel like he was born knowing the trick, rolled hard back and forth, coating his whole body in the muck. He came up looking like a shadow of himself, tail still wagging, eyes sharp, smart dog. We followed his lead, masking our scent best we could. I dragged wet dirt over our tracks, then scattered brush in reverse. My shoulder ached like fire every time I lifted it, but I didn't complain. We didn't have time. The beaver pond was next, knee-deep and cold enough to numb a man's bones. We moved slow, just under the surface, careful not to stir bubbles that might give us up. I held Dusty's scruff with one hand and Iris's elbow with the other. The bottom was soft and full of old sticks, but we made it through, teeth chattering, legs half dead. Once we cleared the water, I pulled us up onto dry gravel and dropped flat. No sign of movement behind us, but the dogs weren't gone, just slowed. Confused, maybe. We kept moving. I paced us by habit, 6 minutes walk, 2 minutes rest. Old canine rhythm. Once the sand started giving way to solid stone, I had us strip our boots and carry them. Barefoot, we'd leave less track once the sun dropped and the wind kicked up. Dusty stopped near a twisted juniper and whined. Iris tapped my arm and pointed. A basalt outcrop shaped like a shelf gave us just enough cover to crawl under and breathe. We settled in with the last of our jerky and a shared flask of creek water. "You ever sleep like this?" I asked. "I've slept worse," she said. "In a tent, middle of a storm, with my aunt snoring in my ear." I managed a half laugh. "Sounds about right." She shifted, pulled her jacket tighter. "We'll need to move by first light. There's a diner on Route 64, 5 bar stools, and the best cherry pie in the state." "I believe you." She tilted her head back, then pointed to the sky. "See that cluster?" she asked. "My grandfather taught me to tell time from that. If they line up with the ridgeline, we've got about 5 hours till dawn." I didn't ask how she knew all this. I just nodded, closed my eyes, and tried to forget the sound of boots on barnwood. But Heather's note kept flashing behind my eyelids. Find what they took. Every word heavier than the last. At first light we moved. Quiet, quick, and steady. My legs felt like wood. Every rock stabbed like a nail. But the road was close. I could feel it in my ribs. We reached the diner just after 7. Low-slung building with faded paint and a gravel lot. I tied Dusty to the fence rail and stepped inside. Smelled like bacon grease and old coffee. A waitress with white hair poured me a mug before I even sat down. "You look worn out, sugar," she said. "Want eggs or just pie?" "Pie," I said. 2 slices and a cup for her, too. I found the payphone by the bathroom door, jammed in 2 quarters and dialed the number I'd kept in my wallet for 5 years. A friend from the shelter once told me that if I ever ran into something heavy, real heavy, to ask for one name. Special Agent Travis Nelson. He picked up on the second ring. "Nelson." I didn't waste time. "My name's Sean Davis. I have sealed documents, maps, and title affidavits tied to property fraud and mineral claims, involving Bailey and Judge Vale. I need someone I can trust." He didn't pause. "Where are you?" "Diner off Route 64. Just east of mile marker 112. Be at marker 118 in 2 hours," he said. "There'll be a deputy waiting. Don't be late." He hung up. That was it. No questions, no promises. Iris finished her pie in silence. Dusty licked his paws under the table like it was just another Tuesday. I couldn't sit still. We walked out to the edge of the lot and stuck out a thumb. Got lucky. A feed truck pulled over. Open bed, half full of grain sacks. Driver was a red-haired woman in coveralls and boots older than me. "You kids need a lift?" she asked. "To marker 118, I said. She nodded. "Hop in, I won't ask." I helped Iris into the back, then boosted Dusty. The truck rattled onto the road and didn't ask anything more from us. That was a gift. She handed Iris a blanket halfway there and looked at me through the rear view. "That dog's got kind eyes," she said. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." We reached 118 with 5 minutes to spare. A gray SUV pulled up slow to the shoulder, tires crunching clean on gravel. The driver stepped out. Tall man, late 30s maybe, no uniform, no badge. Just an exempt plate and a voice that meant business. "Get in," he said. Then he opened the back door without looking at our faces. I helped Iris in. Dusty jumped up and settled between the seats, nose resting on the console like he'd done it 100 times. The driver waited until the doors shut. Then he said, "Deputy U.S. Marshal Ephraim Cole. We'll take it from here." Dusty closed his eyes before we hit 40. The dog didn't even flinch when the tires left gravel and found pavement. The SUV didn't slow until the gate slid shut behind us. Concrete, cameras, and a quiet that felt earned. Deputy Ephraim Cole parked under a light that hummed like it had a headache. He killed the engine and nodded once, the kind of nod that meant we were officially somewhere else now. Special Agent Travis Nelson met us at the door. He was taller than me and built lean, with the posture of someone who didn't waste motion. He said maybe 12 words in the first half hour, and most of them were about evidence custody and not opening anything we'd sealed. The U.S. Marshals handled security and transport. Travis handled the casework, clean and sharp. We laid the pack on a steel table. Ephraim put on gloves without comment and started the inventory like he was setting a watch. Each zip bag got logged, got photographed, then logged again. Dates written out, times written out, GPS coordinates written out. 3 sets of photos from 3 angles. He had a smooth way of doing the careful stuff, like it mattered to him that nothing slipped. I handed over Heather's note last. Travis read it once, slow, then slid it into a sleeve. He didn't comment, which somehow felt respectful. "Judge Vale's office tried to reach me twice," Travis said, checking his phone. He flipped it face down. "I'm looping in the U.S. attorney and filing under seal in federal court." He didn't look at us when he said it. He didn't need to. "Interstate property fraud and mineral rights put this squarely under federal jurisdiction," he added. "The corruption angle gives us additional hooks." Iris let out a breath she'd been holding. Dusty sat by my knee, calm as if this was another training room. Travis made a call and told someone to send Rexford Ames over. About 20 minutes later, the door opened and an old man walked in with a cardboard tube tucked under his arm and half-moon glasses sliding down his nose. He moved careful, but his eyes were sharp. "I've kept copies since the early 80s, Rexford said, like he'd been waiting for someone to ask. "Some people collect stamps, I collect maps." He unrolled a pre-reform survey across the table. Bearings lined up with Donald's notations so tight it made my stomach flip. A creek bend that didn't exist on newer grids curved exactly where Donald had drawn it. "They shifted section lines in the record," Rexford said, tapping the paper with a pen. "Not in the ground. Happens when men think paper matters more than dirt." Travis nodded once. Iris leaned in, tracing the lines with her finger. I felt something settle in my chest that had been loose my whole life. Rexford squinted at one of the photos from the chest. "I knew your father," he said, glancing up at me. "He and Doug Perry hired out as guides one winter. 2004. Big city hunters who didn't know snow from salt." "My dad guided?" I asked. "He did," Rexford said. "Good eye for weather. Saved my nephew from a flash flood once. Dragged him up a bank by the collar and didn't let go." I didn't answer right away. I watched Dusty's ears twitch at a sound down the hall. "How did he die?" I asked finally. Rexford took off his glasses and folded them slow. Truck went into the San Marcos in '09 after black ice. He was alone. Investigators ruled it an accident. I nodded. That empty place boys carry when their fathers teach them the wrong lesson by leaving sat heavy and familiar. Doug's voice from the barn echoed in my head, saying my dad's name like it meant something to him. Iris stepped away to make a call. She spoke low and fast in the corner, then came back with a tight nod. "My aunt says the council's hearing rumors. Bailey's pushing for new permits on old water. They know it stinks." "Good," Travis said. "We want them talking." We signed more forms. Ephraim sealed the chest again with evidence tape and initialed across it like he was closing a door that mattered. Travis told us we'd be staying under names that weren't ours for a bit. "Order something hot," he said, handing me a key card. "You both look like you just escaped a well." The motel was nothing special, clean enough, quiet enough. I took the note from Heather out of my pocket and set it on the nightstand like it belonged there. Dusty made a circuit of the room, checked the bathroom, then lay down with one paw pressed against the door. He snored like a small engine. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the handwriting until the letters blurred. Iris showered and came out wrapped in a towel, hair damp and loose. She didn't say anything, just sat beside me and leaned her shoulder into mine. We stayed like that for a while, breathing in sync, the quiet doing some work for us. Sleep came hard, but it came. When I woke, the room was gray with early light, and Dusty was already alert, ears up, tail still. Travis knocked once and came in with coffee and a folded brief. He didn't waste time. "We moved to federal court this week," he said. "Vale will try to stop us. He won't." He laid out the plan in plain language. Removal to federal court. Sealed filings. A grand jury lane warming up if the evidence held. Rexford's maps would anchor the title. Donald's affidavits would show intent and prior claim. Heather's note would establish knowledge and continuity. "You did the right thing," Travis said, looking at me then, really looking. "Most people don't." I didn't know how to answer that, so I nodded. Iris asked two sharp questions about timing and press. Travis answered both without hedging. When he left, I laced my boots and took Dusty outside. The morning smelled like asphalt warming up and coffee drifting from somewhere down the row. I walked the length of the lot with him, letting him sniff, letting my legs remember what steady felt like. I came back in and zipped the pack closed even though it was empty now. Habit. Iris watched me and smiled, small but real. "What happens next?" she asked. I slung the pack over my shoulder and headed for the door. "Next, we stay out of sight and off the radar, and we do exactly what Travis says." Dusty stood and stretched, then trotted to the door like he was clocking in. By the time we made it back from the motel breakfast bar, burnt toast, eggs cooked hard as gravel, and coffee that tasted like cardboard, Travis already had the news. He didn't bother easing into it. "Bailey filed a civil claim at 8:02 this morning," he said, laying a printed docket on the table. "Says the materials were stolen from his property. Wants an immediate seizure order." I scanned the top line. Plaintiff, Damon Bailey. Defendant, Sean Davis. "He said I stole from his property?" I asked, almost laughing. Travis didn't crack. "Vale signed a temporary seizure order at 8:19. Standard language, immediate enforcement." My gut burned like I'd swallowed a handful of nails. "You said this was federal now." "It is," he said. "I filed a motion at 8:43 to remove the civil matter under federal question doctrine and tied it to the fraud investigation. That stays the order until a federal judge reviews jurisdiction." "Well, I'll be," I muttered. "That fast?" "He's punching," Travis said. "Means we hit something real." Iris leaned over the docket, her jaw locked tight. They're not wasting time. No one spoke for a minute. Dusty shifted under the table and let out a low sigh. Then the call came. Travis's phone lit up. He answered, listened for maybe 10 seconds, then handed it to Ephraim. The deputy's face didn't move an inch while he listened, but he was already grabbing his jacket before the line went dead. "County recorder's office is on fire," Ephraim said. "Clerk saw a guy in a ranch cap toss something into a bin near the microfilm vault." Travis looked at me. "You're coming." We got there fast. Faster than local fire. Smoke poured out the west side of the building, curling like dirty fog. The roof hadn't caught yet, but the office was burning low and wide. It was no accident. Dusty leapt out before I could even clip his leash. He pulled hard to the back of the building, nose twitching like he was chasing a thread through the smoke. Behind the alley dumpster, he stopped dead, barked once, sharp, and sat next to a dented fuel can half hidden in shredded paper. Ephraim waved the fire crew around back. One of them pointed at the lid. Still warm. I stepped inside the back hall with Travis and Iris while the crew cleared the smoke. The place smelled like burnt carpet and scorched paper. Inside the microfilm vault, reels of county property records melted into a black puddle. Nothing to save. The damage was surgical, vault only. Everything else barely touched. A street camera across from the public library caught the back of a flatbed peeling out. The plate traced to a subcontractor working Bailey's spread. That same afternoon, Ephraim picked up one of Bailey's hands on a broken tail light. No drama, no chase. Just a quiet stop on a back road outside of town. The man cracked in under 20 minutes, told them where they met, what they said, and gave up a prepaid phone used to coordinate it all. "He was supposed to torch the microfiche and files," Travis said later. "Didn't realize those weren't the only copies." I looked at Rexford. The old man had a glint in his eye and a beat-up leather bag on his lap. "I told you," he said. "Some people play checkers. I back up records." He brought out a roll of microfiche copies, originals he'd duplicated at home. "Just in case," he said, like that was a normal thing. Ephraim scanned the frames into a secure drive. Each frame showed clear ledger entries under Donald Davis's name, mineral claims, water rights, parcel maps, and then, about 6 months later, the same lines scratched out and rewritten in a different hand. Rexford circled 2 frames and pointed with the tip of a pencil. "This ink's from a different cartridge, and that's not the county clerk's initials," he said. "I've worked next to her since 1985. She loops her R's. This one doesn't." Travis leaned in. "That'll hold up?" Rexford nodded. "Better than what they've got left." While Ephraim logged everything, Iris wrote. She didn't name names. She didn't speculate. She wrote the facts in plain, sharp lines and ended with a question. Who benefits when records disappear? The paper ran it the next morning, front page, above the fold. No picture. Just her byline and the headline. Recorder's vault burns. History erased. I watched Dusty sleep under the table while she wrote, paws twitching like he was chasing something in his dreams. I knew the feeling. That night, the shelter called. Storm coming in. Strays were getting flushed out of culverts and needed somewhere warm. I had 6 pens clean and a barn that could hold 4 more crates. "Drop them off," I told the woman. "We'll make room." I didn't say it out loud, but I needed to do something real. While grown men played with matches and moved lines on maps, I needed to lay out feed and fresh bedding and clip nails and treat hotspots. Dogs don't lie. They don't burn records. They don't file fake claims or torch vaults to cover a paper trail. They just show up, day after day, nose to the ground, heart open, ready to work. Dusty taught me that, without saying a word. Travis swung by around midnight. He didn't stay long, just leaned against the doorframe of the barn, watched me finish stacking feed. "Court's in 2 days," he said. "Keep your heads down." Iris was asleep in the loft. Dusty curled at the base of the ladder like a sentry. I didn't sleep. I stood outside with a flashlight and checked the fence lines every hour, like my grandfather used to do, even if I hadn't known it until now. I thought about my dad. I thought about the truck on black ice. I thought about Doug Perry standing in my barn like he belonged there. And I kept asking myself a question I didn't like. Can a man be 2 things at once and still come out right? Federal court was colder than I expected. Not just the air, but the feel of it. Stone, steel, and rules that didn't bend for anyone. Judge Orenvale wasn't on the bench. Travis had him recused for conflict, and a visiting Article 3 judge took the seat instead. Gray hair, steady eyes, no patience for theater, no small talk. We stood when told. We sat when told. That was it. Travis started clean and slow, the way men do when they know they've got the truth lined up and don't need tricks. He put the chain of custody on the record, exhibit by exhibit. The chest from the cave, the letters wrapped in oiled cloth, Heather's note, the map unfolded wide, bearings lining up with the land like it had always known where it belonged. He didn't rush. He let the room catch up. Rexford Ames took the stand next. He moved careful, adjusted the microphone once, then spoke like he was setting a watch, steady, precise, no wasted words. He explained pre-reform surveys, section lines, and how you can change paper without ever moving dirt. The map from Donald Davis establishes original title and intent, he said. The microfiche shows later alteration. They serve different purposes. The judge nodded. Wrote something down. The court treated Donald's map and affidavits as the foundation of title. Rexford's copies proved the tampering came later. That mattered. You could feel it land. Iris went up next. She didn't dress it up. No drama. Just told the truth in plain words. How she overheard men talking about lithium under the county. How they joked about losing the girl if she didn't keep quiet. How Dusty put himself between her and harm like it was instinct. How the tunnel carried her to my barn when she had nowhere else to go. She didn't look at Bailey when she spoke. She looked at the judge. Then Travis introduced the photos. Black and white prints laid out on the screen. My grandfather, younger than me, standing by a spring with families gathered close. Women in long skirts, kids barefoot, smiling like the world hadn't taught them to be careful yet. Dates written in Donald's neat hand. Notes in the margins. Safe rest here. Keep the door open. The judge leaned forward. The gallery leaned with him. That was the first time I understood it all. The tunnel wasn't just to hide a map. It wasn't just about land or lithium or water. It was a way out. A way through. When men like Bailey's father pushed people off ground they'd lived on forever, Donald gave them another door. Iris squeezed my knuckles under the table. Just once. Enough. The defense called the county clerk next. She swore in, sat straight, and claimed she couldn't recall why certain filings never appeared in the ledger. She said it over and over, like repetition might make it true. Travis waited her out. Then he put up a blown-up frame from Rexford's microfiche. 2 entries, same parcel, same date, different ink, different handwriting. Are these both yours? Travis asked. She hesitated. The room went tight. No, she said finally. Which one is not? Travis asked. She didn't answer. Her lawyer objected. The judge overruled him without lifting his head. The gallery stayed quiet, but you could feel the shift. Tight mouths, folded arms, people leaning back like they needed distance from the lie. When the court recessed, I stepped into the hall to breathe. That's when I saw Doug Perry. He stood near the windows, hat in both hands like it weighed 10 pounds. Older than I remembered from the barn. Smaller somehow. He didn't look at me. Walked straight to Travis and asked, low and serious, for time on the record. When court resumed, Doug took the stand. He told the judge he'd been Bailey's foreman for 15 years. Before that, he ran hunts with my father. He spoke careful, like each word cost him something. He said Bailey's father bragged about a battery rock under Davis ground. Said the old man told his son to own the paper and the rest would follow. Doug said my father refused to sell, refused to sign. Told them he'd rather eat dirt. Then Doug told the story that finished it. A whiteout, years back. Wind so hard it stripped the sound out of your ears. Doug lost footing on a ridge. My father roped him to a cedar and held him there until morning so he wouldn't blow off into nothing. I owe him my life, Doug said. His voice shook once, then steadied. I can't carry that debt any longer. I did wrong. I'll take what's coming. He named names, gave dates, put Judge Vale's lunch meetings with Bailey on the board like pins in a map. The bailiff stepped out of the room during testimony, came back later and cuffed a junior clerk just outside the doors on an active warrant. Word traveled fast. You could hear it in the room. Later, Travis told me Vale would face a grand jury on separate corruption counts. Different case. Same rot. The judge ruled from the bench before lunch. Donald Davis's claims stood. Mineral and water rights reverted to the Davis estate. All interim transfers tainted by fraud were void. A criminal case would move forward against Bailey and others. No speech, no warning. Just the law applied plainly. I didn't cry. I don't do that easy. I just rested my hand on Dusty's neck and felt his tail thump once against my boot. Solid. Real. Like a fence post set deep. Court adjourned. And for the first time since that letter arrived, I felt the ground stop shifting under my feet. 94 days later, I drove the long way home. Windows down, title deed in the glove box, and a new barn lock rattling in the passenger footwell. The land looked different coming back. Not softer, just settled, like it had been waiting for the right name to return to the paper. Mine. I pulled up just before dusk. The porch sagged the same way, but the air smelled less like waiting and more like work. Dust and sun-warmed wood. The kind of clean that comes from absence, not carelessness. Inside, I opened every window, swept the corners, and scrubbed the counters till the rags turned black. I found Heather's old kettle, cleaned it, and set it back on the stove where it belonged. I built a new table for the front room, sturdy oak, nothing fancy, and set it right where her sewing station used to be. Morning light would hit it just the same. Then I took a breath, stepped outside, and asked Iris to walk with me. We didn't talk much crossing the pasture. Dusty loped ahead, ears twitching at every sound, tail high. The cottonwood by the spring was thicker than I remembered. It had grown quietly through the whole fight. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the ring. Plain silver band. No box. No speech. I'd bought it down on Grant Street for less than a saddle. Didn't even haggle. I don't know what's next, I said. I just know I want to share it. She didn't wait for me to get down on one knee. Just stepped in close, held my face in both hands and said, yes. Then she hugged me like she meant to weld us together. The next morning, we posted new signs at the fence lines. Firm, polite, and clear. No trespassing, grazing by agreement only. Below that, in smaller letters, water access with respect. Inquire at house. I hired 2 hands from the Red Cliffs community, Caleb Yazzie and Nora Begay. They didn't waste time. Showed up early, worked straight through, and didn't bother with small talk. I paid them fair. Gave them exact hours. They gave me results. We met with the council for 3 evenings at the old schoolhouse. No speeches, just maps, notes, coffee, and honest talk. We wrote up a memorandum for co-managing the spring flow. They asked for restoration first, erosion control, water quality, clearing invasive grass. I agreed without hesitation. Profit later, I told them. Stewardship first. One Sunday, Rexford rolled up in a rusted van and handed me a thermos and a folder. Inside the folder were 2 hand-drawn storm maps from the early 70s. He pointed to a knoll near the east fence. Your grandfather used to sit there, he said. Watched storms roll off the ridge. Said it helped him think. I built a bench there the next week. Flat-backed pine. Bolted to the stone. Strong enough to take weather. After a cold snap in January, the shelter called. Said they were overrun. I told them to bring 5. I set up crates in the barn with fresh hay and blankets from the bin Heather used to keep for quilting. Dusty walked between them like a foreman. Nosed each one, circled twice, then settled beside a 3-legged hound with a heart-shaped patch over her eye. Her name was Juniper. She could still outrun the younger ones. I didn't expect the emotion when I visited Heather's grave. I brought the cream envelope with her handwriting and read the note again, standing there under gray sky with my hands cold in my pockets. "Found it," I said. "You were right to wait." I left the envelope under a rock by the headstone where the wind couldn't steal it. Some nights I still woke up expecting truck tires on gravel, that old sound of bad news arriving in the dark. On those nights I walked the fence with Dusty, boots crunching frost, flashlight off. The frogs at the spring sang low and steady, like they'd been doing it long before any of us showed up. That sound, the sound of the land still choosing to speak, made me believe we were home. Bailey went down. Not on everything. They never do. But enough stuck that he won't be walking another man's land like he owns it. Conspiracy, record tampering, one count of fraud that carried real teeth. His name disappeared from the paper in under a week. No headline, no mugshot, just 3 inches of print under the livestock auction results. Vale resigned before the hearing. Claimed stress and public distraction. His indictment came out the same day as the fairgrounds opening. Most folks missed it. Page 3, bottom right. The kind of exit that doesn't even make you fold the paper. Doug pled out. Lighter sentence because he told the truth and laid the wiring bare. Who knew what? Who met where? Who signed what under pressure or price? I wrote him once. Told him my father would have said thank you. And also, do better next time. Doug wrote back. 4 lines. Last one said, I'll try. The court set the Davis estate just under 5,600 acres. Full mineral rights on the filings Donald made, plus creek priority across 9 miles of flow. That number didn't mean much to me on paper. But the first time I stood on the North Ridge and watched the grass roll from one fence line to the next like it was breathing, then I got it. That land wasn't numbers. It was motion. Iris and I signed the Water Co-Management Memorandum with the council right before planting season. We capped total draws, wrote a section on post-storm flow measuring, and built in a local review board for disputes. Iris insisted we add a rule that every new pipe has to include a wildlife ladder. She said, if we take, we owe. She was right. We looked hard at the lithium, talked to 3 outfits. The one we chose laid out a plan that didn't chew up the hills or kill the springs. Co-op model, local payouts, restoration fund front-loaded before anyone saw a dime, and the contract included a kill clause. 1 violation, they're out. No appeals, no loopholes, no handshakes behind closed doors. I spent the rest of spring turning the West Barn into a proper refuge setup. 10 runs, heat lamps, roof vents, rubber mats and raised beds I built from old pallets and fencing boards. Every Saturday morning, a line of kids shows up to walk the dogs. They bring biscuits and stories. Dusty struts between them like a shift boss, tail high, checking gates like they might suddenly unhinge if he doesn't. We secured the tunnel too. New steel door, keyed entry, locked down but accessible. Council, fire, and rescue all have copies. Not to hide anything this time, but to protect it. Inside, just beyond the threshold, we mounted a small bronze plaque with Donald's name. Under it, a line Iris wrote, "A good door opens to whoever needs it." Sometimes I stand there and read it out loud, just to make sure it still means something. We still get trucks now and then. Men driving slow past the gate. Out-of-state plates. High beams on even in daylight. That's fine. Let them see. Let them see the fence lines mended, the fields greening again. A mutt sprawled under the windmill, running the place from a patch of shade like he owned the ground he lay on. Let them see what we kept, and what we gave. I don't burn hot like I used to. The anger's not gone, but it's not boiling either. I'm steady. That's something. The world puts a man in a squeeze, sees what comes out. Me? I came out held together by a woman who wouldn't let go, and a dog who knew what was right before I did. People tell me we won. I don't see it that way. We refused to yield. We made the liars answer for it. We dug up the truth and planted it in daylight. That's not a win. That's what you owe the ground when you call it yours. Now it's just fences, water, dogs, and one woman who tells me when I'm being a fool. That's not glory. That's a life. And I can carry that just fine. Before you head out, can I ask you something? If you had a second chance to reclaim something stolen from your family, would you take it, even if it cost you peace? If this story hit you in any way, please tap the hype to help it reach more people. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's just one click, but it means a lot. And drop a comment below, even just great story or your own take. I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you for listening.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.